Are BEE deals worth the paper they are written on? It's a question that has gained currency after last week's shock announcement by Shell that it will be divesting from its downstream business, essentially ditching its service stations in South Africa. And to be clear, they're doing this in several countries around the world. BEE venture conglomerate Tebe Investments had put in around $73 million into a deal with Shell, and they're now being told by the oil giant that their shares are in fact worthless. So how does over R1 billion simply evaporate? That's exactly the kind of mess the Black Business Council is decrying. They're saying government is failing to protect BEE partners from abuse. Kganki Matabane is the CEO of the Black Business Council and joins us now. Thank you so much for your time. Good morning.
Good morning, Bongani and the 702 listeners, and thank you for having us.
How far have we come from the days when companies used the BEE legislation essentially for fronting?
Yeah, firstly, Bongani, I think there has been some pockets of progress in the past 30 years, but there's been a lot of abuse by mainly private sector, because what they do, they find ways of rigging the system, and they found ways of ticking boxes to say, let's appoint Bongani on this position, and then we can get so many B points. So the legislation has become almost like a ticking box type of a approach, and that was not the what you call the spirit of the legislation. The spirit was to say we have a certain history in South Africa. Let's make sure that at some stage one day we will have a economy that is run, managed, owned by all South Africans, as represented by the demographics. But I think we are still very, very far from there. If you look at the ownership of the JSE listed companies, black people own less than 10%. And when you look at the management, JSE listed companies, almost 70% of the CEOs are still white male, which means we are making progress, but it's not enough.
Some companies might argue, but hang on, is that not par for the course when it comes to essentially junior partners, apropos their shareholding? They can't have the biggest say if they don't have the largest share.
Yeah, remember the unfortunate part of the way the structures work is that you get in there mainly through a beauty contest type of a process. And even at the initial stages, when you start to raise difficult questions and you want to be operationally involved, that's when all these other challenges happen. They say, but you can't, you are just a shareholder, there are corporate governance issues. You can't get operationally involved, which means that you don't necessarily know what is actually happening in the business, in the entire value chain. And then what they do, most of them, they lump a lot of costs before the bottom line. And then when the bottom line happens, they say, but we can't declare dividends to you. And remember, these shares are not given for free. You go and borrow money from financial institutions, and then when you can't pay, because you are mainly paying through the dividends, once you can't pay, then you become even weaker. And then they then come and say, but let's have a negotiation and see how much your shares are valued.
So you're saying that in many instances, the BE partners are sidelined from any meaningful decision-making process. They're held in a way at gunpoint by their partners in these deals. And that really then suggests that outside of making a few people who are connected and part of the elites who win the beauty contest, to use your analogy, those might get a few bucks here and there. Is it real transformation then?
Not really, because the bulk of the BE transactions that you may have seen in front pages of newspapers have actually gone under. And mainly because the poor BE partners are not necessarily operational. And hence, when we were negotiating the amendment to the BE Act, we then included the BE Commission. And we thought, if we have a BE Commission, they will have the capacity to investigate, because some of these transactions are very, very complicated. You may have seen some of them. They will pay themselves a lot of what they call management fees, which is a way of basically siphoning the money out of the company. By the time you get to the bottom line, you don't find anything. But unfortunately, the BE Commission that is supposed to investigate this as a neutral party has got no capacity. No capacity in terms of the number of staff, no capacity in terms of the technical capacity to understand this complicated structure.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 6 years of the commission, and as you say, they themselves argue they don't have the capacity, and part of how these structures are designed, that complexity and that ability to read the fine print is exactly what gets these partners in trouble. Would you say that the Shebe Tebe acrimony typifies this?
Yeah, I think that if that's one of the examples. We've got a lot of them because most of the companies come to us and report to us, and then we take them also to the BE Commission. We've got a lot of them that are not in the limelight, where a lot of BE partners are very, very frustrated because they almost like being bullied because remember because of our history, we don't necessarily have the resources and the financial resources to go to the expensive lawyers. Also, you almost get invited into the house and then they bully you around until you say, no, let me just count my losses and take whatever I can take.
I mean, the Shell Tebe deal was being hailed as the archetypal model to follow not so long ago.
Yeah, and remember, it has been there for like 25 years. So from there, you can't say Tebe just wanted to get in and get out as much money as they can. They were there for the long haul, and I think they are treated unfairly, mainly because of the bullying by institutions, especially because I think they've known that the BE Commission is ineffective, so they may just basically go away scot-free because there's no big brother who can then deal with the big brothers and big sisters who are there like Shell.
So how do we rejig the system? Because clearly, from everything you are telling me, as it stands, BEE is failing.
Yeah, I can't say BEE is failing. It's the implementation that is failing. I think the legislation is a good legislation. We haven't implemented it fully to its maximum. So what we just need to do, government needs to ensure that we have a very, very strong, efficient, capacitated commission that can be able to deal with all these complicated cases that
How would it? I mean, we're talking now about partners who, as you say, go borrow money to be able to buy these shares, but because they're not in the majority, they remain junior partners in these arrangements, and like anywhere else, they will never get to be a point where they have the biggest say in these things. Now, you may interpret it as bullying. Their majority shareholders will say this is just the way these things work. How would the commission deal with all of that?
Yeah, if the commission is capacitated, because the legislation, the BE legislation gives it some teeth, but with those teeth, they don't have the capacity to use the teeth. So that's where the challenge is. If it can be as capacitated as other commissions, like we've seen Competition Commission has got a lot of gains because they've got capacity. They can take any Goliath that is there.
Kganki, the only problem I'm missing is that you can't force a company to be led by the nose by a junior partner, whatever your motivation. So until that, I mean, that's the reality here.
Yes, but remember the sharehold, what the shares are, or the companies is controlled by the shareholders agreement, and then that's where the complications come. You can have someone who's got 10% who controls the
Precisely.
the company, like it happens with the Anglos, Americans, and so on. So if the commission is capacitated enough, it can help to ensure that the junior partners can can at least have the same say or a similar say to the big brothers, because that we can do that through the shareholders agreement.
Many people will say, look, black business itself remains divided. Look at the tussles at NAFCOC, for example.
Yeah, like any other environment, there will be challenges now and then, and as such, we are working with the NAFCOC to resolve their challenges, and we are very positive that will happen. But generally, black business currently, as we speak, is very united.
Kganki Matabane is the CEO of the Black Business Council. What do you make of that? Do we need tougher legislation to force the big brothers in these deals and arrangements to play ball in what essentially appears to me to be a grudge arrangement? How is it that you're going to force companies, particularly multinationals, to be led by the nose by their very junior partners who may not be in it for the long haul? On the other hand, Nigel, how does $73 million poof disappear into the air? How does that happen?
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.